What up, player haters? It's your boy, the Hater, up in this mug, and it's time for a Raw review. I did watch Raw largely last night, but I needed to finish it this morning, and then I had to work, so that's why the review is a little bit late. But not that late, because it's still, the day after, right? It's not like I'm doing it next week up in this piece. So the show opens up with Gunther, also known as Kozlov, also known as Not Rusev, coming out and cutting a boring promo. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think this promo really establishes that Gunther is boring. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, this is not a regular episode. This is obviously an edition of Hater on the Road, motherfuckers. Hater on the Road. So that being said, let's continue. Damian Priest comes out, and for some reason in this feud, I'm liking Damian Priest more. The way he's been booked is pretty good because he's been booked as like a legit champion and someone that kind of deserves it, especially in relation to the rest of the Judgment Day, which have been booked as if they are retarded, right? You have like Carlito, who's been there for like 4 weeks playing video games, doesn't do anything. I can't believe this guy is getting paid for this, right? Then you have JD McDonough and Finn Balor, who are wrestling. They're wrestling consistently, but they're portrayed kind of like as dumbasses, So we'll see where that goes. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But basically, they're going to have a match. There's no reason to have the match other than the fact that basically Gunther now, in relation to Damian Priest at least, has an elitist gimmick, right? Gunther is basically like, I'm better than this guy. It's a little bit annoying because Gunther wasn't supposed to be that kind of character. He's not supposed to be this like, I'm better than you kind of character because, his thing is like, the ring is sacred. But now it's more like, I am just superior to you. Whatever. Then we've got Braun Breaker versus Ilya Dragunov. Obviously, thank God, Braun Breaker wins. And I will say this. The thing that should have probably closed the show, the brawl between Gunther and Damian, didn't, right? And one of you pointed out that, like, last week, the main event was, like, the Sami Zayn match. You know what I mean? And instead of it being, like, the match involving the world champion, like, we had a match last week. It was Damian Priest versus Braun Strowman. Two big guys. One of them is the world champion, but the main event is Sami Zayn? Like, how does that make any sense? But whatever, it is what it is. I ain't going to be angry at this. Obviously, Braun Breaker just beats him to death, and Ilya cannot continue. He just gets speared out of his mind. Right? Next up, we have a complete waste of time. Sonya Deville beats Lyra Valkyria. This has already happened several times, it feels like. Maybe she's beaten someone else, but it doesn't matter. Sonya Deville is obviously getting a push, but I don't think it's going to end up with anything good. Seth Rollins is going to be the enforcer between, CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, or the referee, whatever, right? This was really dumb. Drew McIntyre comes out with the bracelet that says April and Larry, right? Like, CM Punk, like, I love my dog, I love Ridge the dog, but this weird obsession with, like, Larry, like, I shouldn't know who Larry is, you know what I mean? The fans shouldn't know who Larry the dog is. Then we had essentially what can only be described as a Sunday Night Heat level match. We had the Final Testament versus Xavier Woods, Otis, and Tozawa, right? Otis is obviously over, but he's not that over. Tozawa, who I think is actually a good wrestler, doesn't do anything, and Xavier Woods is lucky to have a job in this company. Xavier Woods has not drawn $1 for this company ever. You know what I'm saying? Like, the New Day has, but that's just like the idea, right? Like, any three guys could have played the New Day idea. It wasn't this like great gimmick or anything. It was just like, it's basically the Rascals, but like, instead of having three like guys that could be cool, it's the Rascals, but it's three like anime nerds, that's all it is. Nothing special. They only got over because like they were put over, they were pushed ad nauseum. They were there every single time, given like infinite screen time. Then Chad Gable and the Creed brothers come out, and this leads to Chad being laid out by Uncle Howdy, which is, of course, Bo Dallas wearing a silly mask with braids. Now, here's the problem, right? After he did the Sister Abigail and Chad Gable, it's just like, you just see Bo Dallas, and you're like, this is just ridiculous, right? This is just absurd, There's no scenario, like Bray Wyatt, for better or for worse, was a big and husky guy. You know what I mean? He was a hefty boy. So he can at least be presented as someone that can beat up Randy Orton or John Cena. But, like, Bo Dallas can't, man. Like, he cannot be presented as anything other than a jobber, which is why he's attacking a jobber. I don't exactly know what the Wyatt family's fascination is with Chad Gable, but they don't like him, so there you have it. Then we have a segment between Sheamus, Pete Dunne, and Bronson Reed. This is just like literally a segment that exists to, give people something to do, right? It wasn't a fun segment. Sheamus, I like Sheamus, but now he needs to just stick to his banger after banger thing where he just does good matches, and I don't need any kind of storyline between him and Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne sucks. Pete Dunne's boring, and quite frankly, having a feud between Pete Dunne and Sheamus is laughable. Pete Dunne should be wrestling Bo Dallas, you know what I'm saying? There should be a clear mid-card territory, and Pete Dunne is lucky to even make it that far. Now, Sheamus might also be a mid-carder, but he's a legendary mid-carder, so there we have it. At some point, we have Zelina Vega versus Zoe Stark. Zelina Vega wins. Nobody gives a rat's ass. I think Zoe Stark should have won just to put over this faction, but they didn't go with that, right? And then I'm going to talk about the match first, then the segment that matters. We have Sami Zayn and Jey Uso versus the Judgment Day. Sami Zayn and Uso win. It wasn't for the titles, so nobody cares. One cool thing that happened here was that Uso and Zayn did the 1D, right, which is obviously the 3D. That was kind of nice. But quite frankly, it's like, I'm just sick and tired of Sami Zayn. This guy doesn't deserve to have a job in this company at all, but he does, and that pisses me off. Then we had the segment that actually mattered in terms of storytelling, which was the Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, and Dominic Mysterio segment. So, basically, Rhea Ripley comes out and says a bunch of truths. She basically says guys don't like girls like Rhea Ripley. They like girls like Liv Morgan, right? And when she said guys, she also meant Dominic himself. Dominic, right? Rhea Ripley doesn't like to hear this, but she's a little bit insecure. And, Dominic basically starts yelling at Liv Morgan in Spanish, saying, te odio, which means I hate you. And basically he's like, I don't like you. You've just ruined my life. I like mommy, right? Rhea Ripley licks his face and kisses him on the cheek. I don't like this. It does get the point forward, but the only resolution of this angle now is that Dominic has to betray Rhea Ripley at SummerSlam. That's the only way this can play out, which in my opinion goes to show how shitty the Triple H booking has been. There's no logic of Dominic doing this if he was planning all along to side with Rhea Ripley, right? It would be better for him to leave it ambiguous and then side with Rhea Ripley at SummerSlam. The only way he would side with someone and get Liv Morgan to cry if there was some sort of ruse between him and Liv Morgan to betray Rhea Ripley and ensure that Liv Morgan does, in fact, take everything from Dominic. The answer to this is very simple. Dominic can say, well, you're out there flirting with Jey Uso, who's a fat Samoan nobody, who's also married, by the way, and I guess not in kayfabe, he's not, right? Like, you're out there flirting with Jey Uso, and pretty much you've been treating me like a child this whole time. Liv makes me feel like a man. You know what I mean? That would have been great, and that's probably what's going to happen. But even this would have been better if there was no actual setup, right? If there was no situation through which Dominic finds himself, having been committed to one of the two women before SummerSlam. I don't know why they did this. It would have been better to leave things ambiguous. Like, even something like Dominic is going to say something and then he gets attacked by Jey Uso. I don't know, right? Something to give us something to look forward to at SummerSlam, because I don't think anybody gives a shit about the match between Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. Like, nobody cares about that. That's not very exciting. What is exciting is the storyline that involves Dominic. This is not even about Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. This is about Dominic, right? The only question that's going to be answered here is, what is the trajectory of Dominic's career going to be after the Judgment Day? Or will he stay for the Judgment Day a little bit longer, and maybe that'll develop into something? But I feel like Judgment Day is like done. It's kind of like the Hurt Business. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I can't believe the Hurt Business was disbanded. Yeah, they did everything they could have done. Like, well, what's the point of keeping them around? Like, they're not this like main event faction, But that reminds me, I have to do a video on Lashley and how miserable the booking of Lashley has been. But this is going to be a very multifaceted video, but I'll worry about that next, motherfucks. Anyways, that's been your Raw review. It was mid, but I mean, honestly, I have to give this one a 3 out of 10. only because I have to give it a 2 out of 10 because nothing happened. It's the same thing as last week's Raw. Nothing changed, right? Okay, fine. I'll give it a 3 out of 10 because of the Liv Morgan decision making that Dominic did, right? I've been asking for the story to advance, and this isn't advancing, right? And now I can't double back and be like, oh well, it shouldn't have advanced. It's too late. I've been saying let it advance. So here we are, cucks. That being said, take care of yourselves.